attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. We are going to open the agenda for the Architectural Board of Review for February 22nd and start with our roll call, please.
Thank you, Chair Moore. This is Mary. I'll go ahead and take the roll call. We have Chair Moore.
Here.
Vice Chair Six.
Here.
Board Member Anderson.
Here.
Board Member Black.
Here.
Board Member Olson.
Here.
And Board Member Whalen.
Here.
And Board Member Watkins is absent, and we have a quorum. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And now we will open public comment. Any member of the public may address the board for up to 2 minutes on any subject within our jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda for public discussion. Is there anybody out there that would like to make a general public comment? You can follow the instructions on your screen.
Thank you, Chair Moore and board members. I do see that several members of the public have logged into the webinar, and at least one has raised their hand indicating that they would like to speak. Mr. Clausen, I am going to unmute you. You'll need to unmute yourself, and then you'll have minutes to speak on any general item not on today's agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McGuire, and good afternoon, and thank you, Chair Moore. This comment is similar to one I've expressed to other design review boards recently and emailed to the city attorney. First, I request that when the board receives written correspondence, the writer's name and a simple single phrase or sentence describing the content be announced by the secretary. These should become part of the official minutes. In a similar fashion, the name and brief summary for any spoken public comment during the virtual meeting should become part of the meeting minutes as well. In the rare event of a mischaracterization in the minutes and a complaint by the commenter, Robert's Rules of Order allows a motion to amend something previously adopted, which would permit a simple majority of the board to correct the erroneous minutes at a later time. Secondly, I request that the number of virtual attendees present be announced at the beginning of each agenda item or project, just as we might know how many in-person attendees were present during a pre-COVID meeting. Excuse me. The alternative would be for the host to display the GoToWebinar participants, which would allow us all, including board members, to know the number and names of attendees. Finally, I want to remind the board, and here I apologize sincerely for sounding like another all too well-known public nag, that setting the time limit for public speakers is a prerogative of the board. It needs not follow the lead of the council or other boards. And for complex projects, you may choose to extend the time limit beyond the current typical 2 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, I'll take.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else who would like to address the board?
Thank you, Chair Moore and board members. At this time, I don't see any other member of the public that has raised their hand indicating they would like to speak. Mr. Natskaya, have we received any written general public correspondence?
Thank you, Christina and Chair Moore. We did receive general written correspondence for an item not on today's agenda and is distributed to the board before this meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And to the members of the public that make comments, we do take your suggestions into consideration. We discuss that with staff to determine if it's feasible or practical or allowable even. So thank you for your comments. And with that, we will close public comment and move on to approval of the minutes for February 8th. We have those up. There they are. Okay.
I move we accept the minutes as presented.
Second. I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Black. Any discussion? No? Okay, then let's take a vote.
All right, Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. And now for February 12th.
Move we accept the minutes as presented.
All right.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Whalen. All right. Can we scroll down so we can see the motion? Okay. There's a lot in there, and hopefully the makers of the motion have reviewed that carefully.
Yes, Mr. Chair, may I have a
Yes.
further discussion on this?
Yes, please.
On number 9F, it's a bit wordy and I would like to strike after the first sentence, the project includes an appropriate amount of space and landscaping, comma, and then strike everything up to especially considering the upper decks and roof gardens. So it would read, the project includes an appropriate amount of open space and landscaping, especially considering the upper decks and roof gardens. But
As
other
the
than that,
seconder of the motion, do the makers of the motion have any issues with that?
None. No issues.
None.
Okay. So we can amend that. Any other edits? No? Okay. Let's take our vote.
All right, we have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
yes,
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, thank you. The motion carries.
Okay, and then now the consent calendar for today. Read
Thank you,
those
Chair.
out.
And board members, today the consent calendar was reviewed by Chair Moore and Board Member Whalen. They reviewed 1109 San Pascal Street and the project received final approval as submitted.
Okay, I'll move we accept the minutes.
Second.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Olson. Any discussion? No? Okay, let's take our vote.
All right, we have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
yes,
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, any announcements, requests by applicants, etc.? Does staff have any announcements? No. Go ahead, Vice Chair Six.
let's wait to see if staff has any announcements.
Thank you, Chair Moore and Vice Chair Six. At this time, we do not have any announcements. Thank you.
Yeah, Ms.
Go ahead.
Chair. A point of clarification, it was said on roll call that Mr. Watkins was absence. Is he indeed still a member, or has he resigned and we're looking for a new member?
I can let the staff weigh in on that. They're probably more familiar with it than I am.
Chairman Moore and board members, yes, to address Vice Chair Six's question, I guess the protocol for the resignation of any board member or any design review member would be to submit the request, or excuse me, submit the resignation in writing. And that has not happened yet. So we are confirming with board member Watkins whether he intends, whether to confirm his resignation. If he decides to remain, then he will let us know. So we're working with him on that. So that's why we're indicating that he's absent from the meeting. But as of today, he is not officially resigned.
All right, thank you very much. Another point of clarification, Chair Moore. We're working with staff to that worked in a past tense with staff on how to announce an amount of information expressed in the meeting on letters from the public, or you are working present tense on how to present those letters, as I am supportive of having a little bit more information to the public in regards to those letters.
Vice Chair Six, yes. So in the past, we would, when we received letters, we would try to summarize the writer's feelings about the project, whether they were supportive or in opposition. We were instructed by the city attorney's office to not try and summarize those letters in fear of misconstruing the member of the public's approach or feeling about the project. So
Okay.
that's what we're currently operating under. I agree. It would be really helpful to have all that information be available. And I just don't know what we can do at this point.
I understand. So is there a place on the website where members, if interested, can preview before meeting the letters?
That's a good question for staff. I thought there was a place for those letters and correspondence that were to be public, but perhaps that's not the case.
Chair Moore and members of the board, I can tell you that the city attorney's office has been working with our staff as well as city clerk staff on actually having the letters placed online so that the public as well as the board can review them. That's still in the works, so it's not up and running yet. And we'll have to get an update for you because I don't know where they're at with that particular endeavor. And I can tell you also that as Chair Moore indicated, we have been advised by the city attorney's office not to provide a summary of the public comment. We can revisit maybe providing the name or the number of comment letters that we received. And we will need to get back to you on that because we weren't able to do that before this meeting. So I appreciate the question.
Okay.
Meanwhile, it certainly seems it must be discouraging for the public to write letters, not be heard. And I think it's important that we encourage public input, and this doesn't seem to do that.
we will take that information back to the city attorney's office. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Any subcommittee reports?
Chair Moore, the Highway 101 committee is working every 2 weeks, and we're progressing very fine. We're down to railings, signage, and fencing and so forth. So they're taking our comments on each subject and going to update their visual imagery to let us and eventually the public virtual tour what the whole project and the decisions that we've made. So we're making good progress.
Okay, great. I think that is it then for subcommittee reports, and we can move on from general business and on to item number 1, which is 2407 Bath Street, and is a proposal for a new 2-story, approximately 28,000 net square foot pediatric medical office building with a 2-level, approximately 45,886 square foot subterranean parking garage. The project proposes to merge 2403 Bath, 2407 Bath Street, and 310 East Junipero and 314 East Junipero Streets. All existing buildings and site development will be demolished. 3 oak trees are proposed to remain and be incorporated into the new landscape plan. The project received City Council designation as a community benefit project on October 13th of 2020. And project design approval is requested. Project requires compliance with project compatibility analysis and the urban design guidelines, infill design guidelines, and outdoor lighting design guidelines. Project can receive Planning Commission approval of development plan and 2 modifications for setbacks on February 11th of this year. The project was last reviewed at ABR on February 8th. Okay, we have our applicant. Welcome back.
Thank you.
And we have our motion up here. The board is supportive of the proposed setback modification for the stair and accessibility ramps. The board would prefer the aesthetics of both stair and ramp to minimize the metal railing and maximize the sandstone appearance to the elements. The board looks forward to seeing the fully landscape plans that shall incorporate these additions to the project. That's a pretty short and sweet motion there. Okay. So if you could take us through any changes and anything that came out of the Planning Commission meeting that might impact our the project, and go ahead.
Okay, I am assuming that staff doesn't have any comments, Mr. Chair. So if we can go, probably you've seen this a lot. So I will be very brief and then answer questions. Perhaps, Mr. Bolton, we could go to the elevations and then the views. The only thing we have done since meeting with you last and then going to the Planning Commission is to respond to your request on getting rid of the metal railing and putting in stone. The lower elevation here, which is along the alley, you can see we have one simple stone break in that stone wall that ensconces the ramp. And then if we go to the next sheet along Junipero, you can see what we did with the stair as far as the stone stepping. And that is it. So I know Bob Cunningham is available if you want to review the landscape plan in any more detail, but there haven't been any changes other than what I just showed you since Planning Commission. And that,
Okay.
I think, concludes my presentation again, unless you all want to talk to Bob.
Well, I think it might be helpful for him or for the board if Mr. Cunningham can walk us through the landscape plan. I don't think we've had that opportunity yet to hear more about that.
There he is. Hi, Bob.
Hello, Brian. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the board. If Mr. Bolton can show us the landscape plan, I can walk you through it briefly. Here we go. And maybe just, I don't think you need to zoom in on anything. Well, okay, that's great. The photographs of the trees and the smaller plants are all on the right-hand side of the drawing, as you can see. If we start at the upper right-hand corner, we'll call it the northeast corner, going down Bath Street, we've got 3 new oak trees that will supplement the one existing as street trees. The upper right-hand corner of the building, there are 3 firewheel trees, Senocarpus. Going down Bath Street from there, there is a Yellow Bells or Tacoma stands. And then between windows, we've got this pattern all the way along the 2 facades of the building that face the street. We have fortune palm clusters, again, between the windows. Then about halfway down Bath Street, just north of the main entrance, there is a Schefflera Queensland umbrella tree. On the other side of the entrance, there are 2 more. And then farther south, 4 more fortune palms, again, between windows. 1 Mediterranean fan palm just close to the corner. And then the feature tree on the corner is an Albizia mimosa or silk tree. We'll be planting pretty much everything in box sizes. The tree on the corner, we're looking at least a 60-inch box. So it will be probably a 12-foot spread tree and about 12 feet tall when installed. If we can find a nice specimen that's larger, we'll try to plant that. Turning left, going down Junipero Street, there will be another couple of Tacoma stands, the Yellow Bells, and then there are 3 more as you go to the left along Junipero. Another 4 fortune palm clusters between the windows, 2 more Mediterranean fan palms clusters closer to the sidewalk, and those will alternate with the Tacoma stand. So you've got Tacoma, and then you've got the Mediterranean fan palm, and then Tacoma, and then Mediterranean fan palm, repeating pattern. The 2 trees at the southwest corner, the lower right, left hand, are 2 more firewheel trees, the same that we've got up in the upper right-hand corner. The 3 purplish trees along Junipero Street are new street trees, jacarandas. Both the street tree designations are per the designated street tree master plan. We're not asking for any departures there. North along the alley, past the driveway entrance into the basement parking, there are 2 Tacoma stands flanking the new access ramp. Then farther north, there is another Schefflera, the Queensland umbrella tree. On the other side of the trash area, another 2 Tacomas, and then finally 1 more Schefflera. The 3 oak trees show up as faint, large blobs. The 2 on the north side are huge. The one to the left in particular may be the oldest tree in an urbanized setting in Santa Barbara. It's very big, and we're giving it a lot of space. And then the third tree, which is along Bass Street, is also a very nice, big, old Coast Live Oak. So Coast Live Oaks are all being preserved. The two on the north side, again, we're giving them plenty of room. The landscaping under those trees is simply going to be mulch. We don't want to do anything in under the drip lines of the trees that might cause any issues. And since that area is not visible to anyone off-site, any neighbors, there's really no issue with regard to the aesthetics of that situation. The ground plane landscaping, again, is all shown in photographs in the lower right-hand side of the drawing. And again, I believe the board, or at least some of the board, have seen this plan before. As Brian said, nothing has changed, and we haven't yet started construction documents. We will be back in progress with construction documents as we move along. That's all I've got, but obviously here to answer questions. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anything else you'd like to add at this point?
No, Mr. Chair, I think that as Bob just mentioned, we're assuming we're going to come back in progress. So if board members could identify, assuming that we do get PDA today, identifying what they're particularly interested in detail-wise when we come back, that would be fine. But we do intend to come back at least probably a couple of times in progress to review details and make sure we're on track. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we will open public comment. Is there any member of the public that would like to address the board regarding this project today? You can follow the instructions on screen.
Thank you, Chair Moore. At this time, I do not see that any members of the public have raised their hands to speak on this item. Mary, have we received any written public correspondence for this item?
Thank you, Christina and Chair Moore. We did not receive any written correspondence for this item. Thank you.
All right, so we will close public comment and go to questions from the board. Who would like to start? Anybody?
I have no questions.
Okay. Well, I'll jump in. Is there any depiction of proposed lighting or exterior lighting, building mounted lighting, or how is that proposed to be handled?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, we do not show lighting at this point. Our intent is for the lighting to be very low scale. We will probably have some sort of decorative lighting at that front plaza area. And then, safety lighting going down the vehicular ramp. And then just obligatory lights at exit doors. So, but our plans are not indicating any lighting at this time.
Okay. And if we could just talk about the doors and windows, materials and colors, etc.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, the windows will be a baked enamel aluminum window, and what we have thought thus far is to basically continue with the colors that are across the street on the Knapp building. They may be slightly different, but just kind of keeping in harmony with the cottage campus.
Okay. Any other questions from board members?
Mr. Chair Moore.
Yes.
So is it my understanding, Mr. Purnell, that it details colors, the eave ends, the depth of the windows, the tile patterns, etc., will reflect the hospital exactly, or
Well, no, Commissioner Six, no, it's not going to reflect the hospital exactly. We actually may have a little nicer detail on the rafter tails than what is on the three-story hospital, just because it is just a two-story building. But no, we will want to come back with the exact section of that rafter tail and how we are treating the undersides of the roof overhang, and but I would say the tile will be a similar tile as what is on the hospital now, roof tile. Plaster texture will be the same.
okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, then let's move to comments. Anyone have any comments?
Jim Moore?
Yes.
I'm, we have, usually if we're going to give project design approval, we'd have at least, materials in front of us. We'd have window details, at least a preliminary showing the depth of the recesses. We'd have, at least an example of the roof rafters. I'm a little uncomfortable, and I know that this is a very easy or simple, handsome design. However, the protocol is, something that I think we should consider, at least to be consistent among applicants and among projects. So, and the applicant says that he's going to come quickly back with, well, he didn't say quickly, he said come back with in progress. So I'm a little concerned about cart before horse. That would be one of my comments.
Okay.
My second comment is that it's a very handsome design. We've seen it before. I think that it's very successful, except there's one minor thing I'd like to see is a little more traditional or interesting breakup of the large glass fenestration above the main entry. It looks very contemporary and should be finessed a little bit more.
Okay. In what way do you mean?
Well, like a little more maybe the very highest panes across the top, a more a secondary cut up more in proportions with and the sizes of the standard windows on the second floor, for instance. I'm not going to design it, but right now we see, very large, simple panes, some of them rectangular and not very traditionally square, not very traditionally proportioned. And I'd like to see a little bit more two levels of hierarchy of mullions and more traditional look to it.
Okay, so essentially a more traditional approach to the glazing sizes.
Yeah,
And
I think I would make exception to what he has on the standard windows, just this one large window and maybe the window opposite in the facing the driveway or the drive ramp.
okay. Anybody else?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Whalen.
I would support and second all of Member Six's comments as to the details around the windows, the rafter tail ends, and especially the main entry. That has been a previous comment on how modern that one particular instructive element of the building is. And I would reaffirm his assertion that it needs more work to break down the scale, perhaps increase the number of window panes. The point being, these large sheets of glass work against a more traditional Santa Barbara design ethic. Thank you.
Okay, and perhaps staff can weigh in on some of the minimum requirements for project design approval. Are applicants required to have materials listed at this point and lighting displayed or specified at this level? Or is that something that can be done at final?
Mr. Chair and board members, I'm reviewing your guidelines as we speak. I can tell you that for project design approval, what you will be approving, it is the most important approval of the project as you are approving the design, the size, bulk and scale, and the site plan. But it also indicates that for final approval, that is when details come in, such as the color samples and the door hardware and light fixtures. Those type of details are at final approval. So the project design approval is the actual design and architecture style, size, bulk, and scale, site planning of the project. But certainly for the final, you could hold off on some of the landscaping if you want. I think sometimes if it's a major landscape project, you might want to see at least a preliminary at project design approval and then the details at final. I hope that helps.
It does, thank you. That was my understanding as well, that we don't need everything spelled out at this point. We need to be comfortable with the design and the general intent of what we're seeing on the elevations. So if that's not the case, then now is the time to say so.
I would make a motion to move this to project design approval with the conditions that mentioned special attention to the conditions mentioned by Commissioner Six and Whalen. So that is my motion.
Okay, well, we should probably try and include those comments in the motion if we can, so.
Yes.
Vice Chair.
Mr. Chair, if I may second that and add to that, is that that we could grant preliminary design approval or project design approval with the understanding that the applicant will come back with an in-progress review addressing at least the following. Number one, a clear relationship of the top of the roof mansard hip in relationship to the specific chosen mechanical equipment to verify the relationship and sight lines between to verify that rooftop equipment is screened from all locations. Number two, that the applicant shall on that first progress review show the detailing of the window head, jamb, and sills in light of achieving the appropriate depth to the windows from the wall surface. The applicant, or three, the applicant shall provide a section or detail of the proposals at the roof eaves. The applicant, four, the applicant shall show further traditional proportions and detailing of the both large windows north and south of the entry tower. The applicant shall five. The applicant shall show detailing of the railings and other site accessories. Six, applicant shall show proposed exterior lighting. What else am I missing? Detailing and seven or whatever the next number is. The detailing of the breaks and wall planes, especially around the entablature at the main entry, and the horizontal moldings indicated below the second story windows sills, and other next item, materials proposed for trash gates and other, I've already said it, but exterior accessories and detailing. And then if Mr. Olson could add that to his motion, I would be happy and second it.
Thank you, Mr. Six. Let's wait and see if anybody else has anything to add to it, and then we could ask Mary to read it, and then I could approve those items that have been added.
And you can read the project compatibility criteria.
Well, I'm willing to do that. Right. The project is in compliance with the city charter and the municipal code, and it's consistent with the design guidelines. it's compatible with architectural character of the city and the neighborhood. And it has desirable architectural qualities and characteristics distinctive of Santa Barbara. The size, mass, bulk, height, and scale are appropriate for the neighborhood. The project is sensitive to adjacent landmarks and historical resources that we are aware of. The public views of the ocean and mountains the project has responded appropriately to the public views of the ocean and mountains, and the use of open space and the landscaping is appropriate.
Okay. So we should probably have that read back to us.
Before, Mr. Chair, before we do, Mr. Olson invited others to add to the list that I had quickly went over. Anybody to add?
Maybe if we let Mary read it to this point, it would be easier for the other members to add.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you. This is Mary. I'll go ahead and read the motion back. So the motion is for project design approval with the following comments. The applicant shall provide an in-progress review addressing at least the following items. Number one, show a clear relationship between the top of the roof hip in relationship to the specific chosen mechanical equipment in order to verify that the rooftop equipment shall be screened from all locations. Number two, the applicant shall, during the in-progress review, show detailing of the window hip, jamb, and sills in order to achieve appropriate depth to the windows from the wall surface. Number three, the applicant shall provide a section or detail of the proposals at the roof eaves. Number four, the applicant shall show further traditional proportions and detailings of both large windows on the north and south. Number five, the applicant shall show detailings of railings and other site accessories. Number six, the applicant shall show proposed exterior lighting. Number seven, show detailing of breaks and wall planes, especially around the main entry and the horizontal moldings indicated below the second story window sills. Number eight, show proposed materials for the thrush gates and exterior accessories and detailing. And lastly, the number nine, the project compatibility analysis findings were made.
Thanks.
I approve those additions by Commissioner Six.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
could we, I think it's number five, the windows north and south of the tower, entry tower. Is that where we talked about the traditional cut-ups of the entry?
Can we read back number 5, please?
Yes. The applicant shall show further traditional proportions and detailing of both large windows, north and south.
Of the entry tower. Of the entry tower.
Okay, I can add that in.
Are we sure that is clear? It's more traditional detailing of the windows both north and south.
Or is it east and west?
East and west, or at the entry and at the rear of the entry, something more descriptive? I don't know, just a suggestion. Up to you if you want to change that.
Well, he doesn't have a true north, but it's, let's say the front entry and the window facing the driveway ramp at the entry tower.
That sounds better.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I approve the additions to my motion.
Great. All right, if that's it, then let's take our vote.
All right, we have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, thank you. The motion carries.
Okay, thank you. And now we have sorry. And there is a 10-day appeal period. You can follow the instructions on screen for that process. Okay, item number 2. How are we doing on time here?
Wonderful.
We're good.
We're doing well? Okay. I believe they were scheduled for 4 o'clock. And so hopefully we have our applicants. Does staff have our applicants available?
Thank you, Chair Moore. We do have our applicants here for this. Thank you.
Great. Okay, then I will do the intros. This is item number 2, 11 Anacapa Street, which is here for concept review. And this is a proposal for alterations and additions to an existing multi-tenant commercial building and parking area. Project involves converting 1,643 square feet of warehouse floor area to a wine tasting business, including a new 1,962 square foot, 45 seat roof deck and second story storage area and bar. The second story and roof access will be provided with a new exterior stair and elevator. Additional parking would be provided with a 22 space mechanical parking lift structure, replacing 9 surface parking spaces for a total of 45 parking spaces. Planning Commission of a coastal development permit and a parking modification is required to allow the 45 parking spaces rather than the required 68 parking spaces for the proposed combination of uses in the building. No final appealable decision will be made at this hearing. This project requires compliance with the project compatibility analysis and the following guidelines: the urban design guidelines and outdoor lighting design guidelines. The project was last reviewed on January 11th of 2020. Before we jump into it, perhaps staff can weigh in on the project description reading that no final appealable decision will be made today. Why is that?
Thank you, Chair Moore. The planner for this project is Mr. Tony Bauman. He is logged into the meeting. I'm not sure if he was.
Here I am.
Oh, there you go. Mr. Bauman can speak to that.
Great.
All right. Thank you, Chair Moore. Hello, board members. This project requires that coastal development permit and parking modification by the Planning Commission. So the review today, the applicants were requesting a check-in again at the ABR because they made significant overhaul to the architectural style based on the ABR's previous comments at the first concept review. So they're here just to hear what you all think about their redesign. And then if you're ready to, you could continue it to the Planning Commission again.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Well,
And if we can have our
stand by for
motion.
questions. Thank you.
Great. We have our motion. So continue indefinitely. The applicant shall restudy the proposed materiality of the additions, particularly attempt to meld materials with existing conditions and create something that's more compatible with the existing structure and surrounding buildings. Number 2, restudy the materiality of the 2 structures. To restudy materiality of 2 structures should take inspiration from the industrial old warehouse theme of the surrounding buildings and or artistic serendipity expression also found in the area, especially along the west elevation of the building. Okay. Let's have our applicant on screen.
Okay, are we good to go? Shows it's on.
Chair Moore, you might be cutting out.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chair Moore. We are a couple minutes early, so obviously the architectural team, Justin and I, are here, but maybe it's more just for the planner. I think we're still expecting Jarrett Gorin from Vanguard and Courtney Jane Miller might be chiming in. So they might be popping in a little bit. So I don't know if it's okay for us just to kind of start and then add them as they join us.
Appears Mr. Gorin is here. We can
Okay, great.
allow him on screen.
Okay. And then CJMLA, I wasn't sure, I didn't get confirmation. So landscape hasn't changed too much, but we can cover that as best we can. And if she does join, we'll allow her to do that. But okay. All right, there's Mr. Gorin. Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Chair, fellow board members. We're excited to share with you kind of the overhaul we did do. So statistically speaking, working with Mr. Bauman on some seating on the roof deck, but otherwise the general site floor plans, layout, the components of the project did not substantially change. So this is purely an aesthetic exterior exercise that we were hoping to get positive feedback from this board. And then, as mentioned by Mr. Bauman, move on to Planning Commission. So with that, why don't let's just turn the page. Existing site photos, which I think we're all familiar with. And again, yep, we saw these last time. Next page. Next site plan, let's just flip through the next couple. Again, site we're familiar with. AS 101, again, let's pause here for a second. So let's zoom in to the top left corner of our plan just to kind of revisit the pieces and parts. So Helena Avenue facade is by and large going untouched, which was the direction we've always had. And then kind of Plan North really is where outside that new tasting room is where the majority of the exterior changes are happening. You can see outboard stair has been a little refined and slightly changed. We have just south of that reduced the amount of opening to that north elevation of the existing building. And then the elevator tower remains the same. So that elevation you'll see a little differently. And then kind of moving to the bottom right, the Parker, again, same footprint, same structure as before, but we're just modifying exterior materials and then a little bit of change to the landscape in that area as well. So let's go to the next sheet. Proposed plans, we'll get into it. I'm going to jump into just elevation and views, and we can always go back to plans with questions. So let's go to the next sheet. Yep, keep going. Next. Let's get past the landscape, allow Courtney to touch that if she comes back. Next, please. Okay, yeah. We can do that. Let's go back a sheet to A103. Let's zoom in just a little bit to that north property side again, even more, please. And just we can get a little more specific. So you can see one of the major changes is sort of as we turn the corner from Helena, you see our new proposed wall. So there's 12 feet of wall that turns the corner that's intending to mimic the Helena facade. So really what we're dealing with is 3 main openings. The first 2 on the left are large roll-up guillotine style industrial doors. And then the 3rd bay is our Mandor main entrance. So I just kind of wanted to point that out to you. So let's go to the next sheet. Then roof deck up above. I believe this happened last time, but we pulled all the planters, you know, away from Helena. So you can see there's a dimension there. I can't quite read it. Is it like 8 feet? If you zoom in a bit more to that top left corner. I think this is important. So it's 6 feet. So you can see the dimension. So the planter and the barrier for the rooftop deck is pulled 6 feet away from the street side. And then the stair you'll see is sort of a double run up, and we've actually simplified the stair, and you'll see, especially in elevations, but here in plan, we've actually mimicked some old industrial stairs and put a radius to the corners to give it a little bit more character. So want to point that out. So let's go to the next sheet. Roof plan next. So here's some comparisons of elevation. So the top is the existing and the bottom is the proposed, just for context, right? So really in this elevation, all the difference we're seeing is we're obviously not showing the Helena all the details, but really the roof deck portions above. So that's, again, the only change to the Helena elevation. Let's go next sheet. Okay. Here, really the left half is the beer garden project for reference, and then the right. So you can see, so the top right portion is our north face of the project. So we're basically demoing that existing wall. And then let's zoom in on our proposed a little bit. So just that right half. So starting on the right, so on Helena on the right, you can see sort of the solid mass of the stucco building is now turning the corner, just so it feels a little more solid and as if it was there a little longer. There's our 6 bays of industrial steel type windows. Again, just kind of, we had reference imagery and looked around the funk zone for inspiration for these industrial buildings, revealing the structure around those 6 bays. And then you can see the stairs just a little different. Again, I mean, in general, our take was we backed away from kind of all of the extra pieces and screens that were applied last time and kind of designed through omission. So, and kind of took note from, that's how the funk zone develops, right? So what are the pieces that really are important? How do they get added simply or in a funky way to the building? So that was our new approach. So those 6 bays kind of just produce light view. So we kind of kept them as simple and industrial as possible. And then the one used for the Mandor, we make unique. The stair is intended to be very straightforward and industrial, applied to the side of the building. It's outboard, it's touching the building kind of fairly lightly. And we'll show you a couple examples of that. And then just the screen, the planters up above are meant to kind of recede and go away. And another change to the elevator tower is meant to be kind of like the other grain type silo. It's right now currently just a simple stucco box that is an opportunity for potential mural or signage, but again, keeping it very simple this time around. So let's go to the next sheet. And a lot of this will really show well in we've done some rendered views for the board. So this is, okay, what elevation is this? Oh, I'm sorry, this is the Helena elevation. So again, top is existing condition, the bottom is the proposed. So you can see the rooftop bar portion kind of beyond, and then on the left, just the simple industrial stair tacked on to the north side. So let's go next page. Here is really the rear elevation. It's the elevation of the beer garden, and we're just seeing our project beyond the rooftop elevator tower and then the stair very far beyond. Let's go to the next sheet. The Parker in elevation, I think it'll really be described best in the perspective views rendered out. So this is really just for reference. So I'll just kind of save my thoughts till we get to those views. So let's go next sheet. Again, there's the Parker. You'll find we're kind of just adding the quirkiness of the funk zone and paying homage to some of the old industrial railway buildings and also the lumberyard buildings. So I'll get into it more. Let's go next and next again. Let's get to the rendered sheets. Okay, so here's where we'll start describing it a little better. So up top, each sheet will show a rendered view of the proposed project and then some of the inspiration or context images. So, up top, I think we're all familiar with, we call it the Kiva building, but there's a couple examples of newly kind of renovated industrial buildings, sort of a simple, straightforward industrial stair attached to the outboard and a canopy. So that we thought was a really good example. The middle photo was the Helena Street Bakery. That shows kind of large glass block openings, but kind of the scale we're looking to do, and then the little grain silo. And then so our shot, you can really see the main moves on the Helena side. So we're allowing, let's zoom in there, get that as big as we can. So we allowed sort of the stucco, the quality, the color. We'll try to match the patina, turn the corner now in this new north elevation. We thought that was really important so it didn't feel just like a flimsy stage facade. So we're trying to really integrate that corner and make it more solid. And then here's a good look at industrial stair, kind of rounded corners, which is really common for that type of exit, an industrial stair. We're choosing a kind of a worn, weathered, anodized finish, open rail, horizontal rail. And then what you'll notice if you zoom in a little bit more is we kept that simple, but we added a turquoise color wire mesh. You can see on the right, you get a peek. There's this great splash of color along the Surf Museum facade, and we're looking for ways to actually kind of pull that color like a ribbon around the corner in the new work we're doing. So we thought that was fun just to kind of tie together and to add a layering and a splash of color. You can see we also mimicked that same curved anodized to the canopy on the roof deck. And then to warm it all up, showing wood decking and treads kind of built into that, and then the stucco beyond. So let's go to the next sheet. Here's just a quick view of that north elevation. Again, showing it and rendered out. Here are the materials we're really looking at doing. There's sort of that 1/2-inch wire mesh, painted that fun turquoise color. The anodized mesh is what we picture for the rooftop planters and rails, just so it's wider, it's going to be lighter and more transparent. We really want that to go away and be as light as possible. And then the right swatch is that anodized finish for the stair. Let's go to the next slide. Here's our drone shot. We're just sort of lifting up. Again, you get a hint of the stair and the colors getting tied through and just a peek of the roof deck. It won't be too noticeable from the ground, so we just want to give you a peek of that and showing how the lighter wire mesh is going to be a little more transparent. And then again, up top is really just more of mood imagery to kind of set the tone for the rooftop environment. Next sheet. How am I in time? 2 minutes, 3 minutes, okay. All right, now we're moving to the Parker. So here we are, Florida Maíz is just tucked on our left in the foreground. So if you don't mind, so the top images, again, just some inspiration. We took a bunch of tours around the funk zone, looked at materiality, looked at simplicity of structures, and we narrowed down. We all know kind of the building on the top right, that classic corrugated kind of tan color with industrial windows. We thought that was a good reference point for color, look, and feel. If you pan left, the next image is highlighting. We showed this one, but there's, a dozen examples of, we see a lot of murals happening, but we're also seeing a lot of these applied murals. So this is almost really like a painting that was pre-done and applied to the front of a building. So this is the kind of install we're proposing for the Parker. And then the last image on the left, we can pan left. Again, just another example of one of the great murals happening. So we're trying to bring this liveliness to this little structure. So let's pan down for a rendered view. Zoom in as far as you think you can. So it's full screen. One more. There you go. So a couple moves worth showing, kind of the funky site wall that exists currently, that American flag mural by Wally's all there. We're hoping to keep all of that. And so really the inspiration here was we wanted to tie it into some of these simple, it's not a building. We wanted to let it reflect like a structural, whether it's, you know, a railway structure. But the other thing we noticed was this site had a history of being a mill or a lumber yard. So we really took note and modeled this after the lumber yard storage buildings. So that's really the shape it took. You'll see it's basically the structure of the Parker, and then it's clad on top with that tan corrugated and applied materials. You'll see it's an open truss, so we're gonna see it breathe a little bit, so you'll see through the truss systems. And then the bottom, we just took almost like an old building shear, kind of rough sawn, reclaimed lumber that's applied diagonally on the inside of the structure, just to create pattern, texture, and even layering. So you see the metal stilts. So we kind of go outboard for the upper version and inboard for the lower. So let's go to the next view of it. Here's a great view kind of showing perspective, but really gives you the sense of that elevation. Let's zoom in just towards our building there. So we like the quirkiness of this. Again, it's lifted, so it's a little lighter. And then like all of those older lumberyard buildings, you kind of get that eave that kicks out, and then it sort of is covered by that gable end, and it kind of creates this quirky graphic shape. We think that's really appropriate. We're indicating that tall vertical piece is, we'd like to see three-dimensional signing for the site be produced. This we just kind of mimicked from the Surf Museum side. So we envision that could be wayfinding for the project, of course, coming in a different permit. That existing light post is there, and then there's one of the proposed art pieces on the front. So we kind of like this eclectic mix of things. Let's go to the next shot of it. And then, yeah, zoom into the building. So again, on this side, we want it to be true to that form of architecture, but we wanted to liven it up. So we left this north face open, more transparent. You're seeing the revealed structure of the Parker. And then what we're doing is we're embellishing with this louvered system kind of across the middle bay and putting those splashes of color all the way across. That's sort of adding that fun, funk-zone quality. Let's keep going. I think we show a couple night shots. I think it'll become, yep, next, let's go next shot, next page. There we go, zoom into that. So it's an opportunity. There'll be lighting in the Parker that requires some, but we think it'll be a really fun display of color and wayfinding just for this project. So kind of gives a really neat effect there. Okay, let's next, I might be out of sheets. Is there any other sheets?
Yeah. Let's move it on here.
We can conclude there. So I think that concludes, and we're happy to answer questions.
Great. Thank you. With that, we will open public comment. If there's anybody in the public who would like to address the board regarding this project, you can follow the instructions on screen. Do we have anybody?
Thank you, Chair Moore. There are several members of the public who have logged into the webinar. At least two of them have raised their hand indicating they'd like to speak. Matt Labrie, Stephen Peterson. Mr. Labrie, I have unmuted you, and you may have to unmute yourself, and then you'll have 2 minutes to speak on this item. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Chair Moore, members of the board, thank you for taking some comments. Just wanted, I followed this project and I'm very impressed. I hope it moves forward with positive comments. The kind of the attention to the grain mill aspect, I really liked, and the sensitivity to the Helena Street side, the improvements wrapping that facade around the side, I think did a lot for the project. And I hope that you forward this with positive comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Stephen Peterson, I have sent you an unmute request and you will have 2 minutes to speak on this item. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. Good afternoon. My name is Stephen Peterson. I work in downtown Santa Barbara and I'm a regular visitor to the Funk Zone, and I just wanted to speak in support of this project. I think it's really well designed and is going to add something special to the Funk Zone, specifically regarding the design. 3 things that I like, the mechanical lift parking, I think is an innovative approach to supplying the parking and an effective use of space. I think that the scale and the look of it fit in well with the neighborhood, and the addition of the artwork on the outside is going to bring something special. Secondly, that rooftop deck is just going to be a spectacular space to enjoy views of the ocean and the beauty of Santa Barbara. And we don't have a lot of places to catch those kind of views in the Funk Zone from that height. And I think it does so in a way that's not too visually overpowering, gives you that rooftop space and view without adding too much bulk up there at that high level. It's going to block other views. And then thirdly, just in general, the unobtrusiveness of the project. I think, from the street side view, you're hardly going to notice it's there. I think the choice of materials with the metal and the exterior stairway really fit in well. So they've done a good job of adding something special to the Funk Zone while maintaining the existing character and scale. So I just support the project wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Do we have anyone else?
Thank you, Chair Moore. We have a Susan Dariush who raised their hand indicating they would like to speak. There are also several members of the public that have raised and lowered their hands. So if you would like to speak, just keep that hand raised so that I'll be able to see that you'd like to speak on this item. Susan, I have sent you an unmute request. You'll need to unmute yourself and then you'll have 2 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi there. Can you guys hear me? Wonderful. I just wanted to say thank you so much for all your time. And, I just wanted to kind of just go over what everybody else is saying. I agree with everyone in terms of this project. I love the fact of having that rooftop. It really gives it a lot of character, which blends in really nicely with the Funk Zone. So, I give it all for this project. I think it's definitely a thumbs up. So thank you again, everybody, for all your work.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Moore. I see Jill Johnson and Peter Sullivan have their hands raised. Jill, I'll be calling on you first, and Peter after Jill.
Hi, I'm Jill. I own a clothing store in the same building, and so I've been following this project from the very beginning. I love the new renderings. I think that, we're very, very excited about this project and very welcome. I speak to a lot of locals, a lot of tourists, and the rooftop vistas are going to be incredible and lending something completely innovative and new to the Funk Zone that I know that our locals and tourists alike are going to appreciate so much. I love that they've done it in a way, I've been in this building for a while, and I love that they were able to design it in a way that is so integral to the history of the building. So I really appreciate that. I'm super looking forward to it, and I just really love all the time that everyone has spent on making this a thoughtful and beautiful project. So I'm looking forward to seeing it come to fruition. So it has my support 100%. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Peter Sullivan, I've sent you an unmute request and you will unmute yourself and you have 2 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Great, thank you for having me. I'm super excited. I'm a new entrepreneur that's just relocated to Santa Barbara. We just raised a pretty significant amount of venture capital and we're looking to expand in Santa Barbara, and we're currently out of the Kiva workstation down in the Funk Zone. And after talking to several members of the Kiva workstation, everyone is super excited. We've been actually printing out and passing around the renderings of the building. And I think the adjustments they made are amazing. I think it's gonna add so much to the environment. And I just think it's a no-brainer, to be honest with you. By the way, I've only visited a few wineries around here since I'm new, but Sunstone's one of them, and hopefully we'll see them there. And I think just, it's very tasteful. To be honest, the original renderings, I weren't as big of a fan, but the new ones, I think really took in the comments and made them into a beautiful space that resonates with the rest of the community, and the artwork's great. And I'm just in 100% support, and I hope to be able to be a patron there soon. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else?
Thank you, Chair Moore. I see Len Germano has raised their hand and they would like to speak on this item. Len, I have sent you an unmute request and you'll have 2 minutes to speak on this item. Thank you.
Yeah, hello. Thank you. Do you hear me? Do you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can't anymore.
Are you able to hear me now? Hello?
Yes.
Len, we can hear you. Go ahead and speak.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, my name's Len Germano. I'm actually owner of Skyna Wine Lounge. I'm one of Ray's tenants in the building. And I'm coming out fully for the support of this project. I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to really bring the aesthetic to the building up to par. And, you know, the originality of this building is just amazing. And I think that the way the blueprints are and the way they're going about it is really going to add to the Funk Zone. Other than the building itself, it's going to enhance it to be more of a destination. Helena's been an interesting block where it's a street, but a bit of an alleyway also. And I think it'll be a great new attraction for this area, considering I'm in business right on the far corner. And I think it's really going to just add to the Funk Zone in general. So I totally support this project, and I think it's going to be great. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else?
Chair Moore, I see there's Rafael Carrillo. Rafael, I'm sending you an unmute request. You'll need to unmute yourself, and then you'll have 2 minutes to speak on this item. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Hello? Hi. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. My name is Rafael Carrillo, and I absolutely love the drawings. The long history with the children, I could spend time on the readers. And for 30 years, I've been hoping someone would do something for you. Restaurant, bar, pizza,
We can hear you very well.
Oh, am I better here?
Slightly better, yes.
Okay. So, I love the drawing. I think the town needs this project. I love that roof, take time on that roof and have always wished that someone can build a restaurant or bar or anything to the school down to really some views. I can't wait to get, I don't know if you guys have been on that roof, but it's phenomenal view. And I think the community needs more projects like this. It's going to open opportunities for people to live. It's going to give them more traffic to the town, more money, opportunities to grow. And I don't know if you guys love this project. It's a big project. It's fit. I live it. It's perfect. The concept. Amazing. It's like everything is. So I hope you guys get behind it. I can't wait to see it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, do we have anyone else?
Thank you, Chair Moore. At this time, I do not see any other members of the public have raised their hands, indicating they'd like to speak on this item. Mary, have we received any written correspondence on this item?
Thank you, Christina. We did not receive any written correspondence for this item.
Okay. Well, with that, we will close public comment and move on to questions from the board. Who would like to go first?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I would like to ask the applicant just a couple of material questions. The louvers in the what do you call it? The park structure in the front. What material will those be?
Great question. Justin, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we're painting wood louvers. You can see the crisscross is metal cable for support, but then the louvers themselves will be painted wood. Is that correct, Justin?
That's correct.
Okay, and then above in the same image, you call for a metal screen. Is that the 1x1 that you have at the
Yeah, we're looking for, that's that anodized to the more transparent version. So yes, so that wire mesh, we want to be able to see through into the truss ceiling structure.
Exactly, okay. And one of your source images was the iron shop, the metal fabrication shop in along Sussex-Flatus. And that had a very standard corrugated, classic corrugated profile. Did you consider using that using that very old simple corrugation, and why not? There you go, that image. Did you consider using the corrugation? Why not?
We did. We looked at kind of the traditional, kind of the rolled and or some of the different variations. But I believe, hey Justin, can you weigh in on this too? I believe it is a corrugated. Is that your question? We are proposing a corrugated metal skin.
Yeah, what I'd like to see is, you know, if this old classic wave profile could be used, and if not, why?
It certainly can be used, yeah. And we, you know, we haven't, go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, I'll speak to this. It was, if you look in the buildings adjacent on Helena Avenue, they have more of that, I guess, agricultural profile. So we were trying to match that profile just because of the building adjacencies, if you look around. And so that's where we went with that more boxed rib, I guess, if you could call it, profile.
Okay. So there are, what, across the street on Santa Barbara or Anacapa?
Can we go to the photos, the context photos, please?
Yeah, go to the second sheet. You'll see it.
Which photo has the material?
Oh, there's only one photo sheet.
So what is
I believe
the,
it's page 2.
Is there a second page of photos?
Yeah, so if you, middle
There does not
row,
appear to be a
second
second
from the
page.
bottom.
There you go.
that one, okay. That's a very old profile. And it has,
Yeah, so
Well,
that
and-
was more closer.
okay, thank you. I think those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Questions? Mr. Whalen?
You're muted. You're muted.
You're muted.
Mr. Whalen, you're muted.
As usual, standard practice. Presenters, is there a section through the parking structure that is the width dimension? I may have missed it.
There we go, top right.
There it is.
Yeah.
So could you zoom in? So does the truss that is added provide any of the usable space for the parking structure, or is it really just a hat?
It's a hat. It's just to cover the parker, which is required, but we need the clearance for the car, which you can see the dimensions for.
So the upper level, the third most level of the cars that are parked would be essentially the bottom chord of the truss? Or
Just below,
thereabout?
you can see, yeah, just below that, yes.
All right.
Yeah.
And then what is the height comparison of this parking structure to the other building?
Oh, do we have, let's see, Justin, can you point us to an overall height here?
The elevation view, you'll see it. The E is
Elevation view?
outlined.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
elevation view.
Now that other elevation.
Oh, there we
that
go.
was a-
There we go. Uh-huh.
There it is. All right.
Actually,
Those
the-
are my
the
questions.
top-
Thank
oh.
you, Chair Moore.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that take care of your questions?
Yes, those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Who else has questions? Mr. Olson.
Yes, I'm not sure of our purview here, because I think the last time I asked a question about murals, Chair Moore, I wasn't certain about our purview. And I think specifically my questions are there assigned places for these murals, could they be three-dimensional? Could the whole side of the building be a mural? It just feels to me like they are a part of the architecture and that we ought to know more about the program that accompanies them.
I understand. So in this context, we pretty much need to ignore the presentation of art, public art and murals on the building. It's unfortunate because it is a strong part of presentation. And our job is not to review the artwork locations and things like that at this time. That's going to be a separate process, including signage.
I respectfully disagree. And my question isn't about the art as much as it is about the effect they're going to have on the architecture. And because of their size and all of that sort of thing. So I understand that what you're saying to me, I'm just disagreeing with it.
Okay.
I
Any
have
other
no other
questions?
No.
Okay. Anyone else? Questions?
No.
Oh, Ms. Anderson.
Yes, so I watched the last meeting and I've read all the minutes, so I'm up to speed on where we are. And I was just wondering if you guys had studied alternate materials for your screening that you had previously proposed.
On the staircase?
On the staircase and the Parker.
Yeah, well, starting with the kind of the main building, this building we're looking at here is not beyond a very quick conversation. I think once we got that feedback and we decided to take a completely different approach, we kind of wanted to apply less to the building. The farther we studied it, the less we thought it would be important to have like an extra layer. We started studying what's the experience inside going to be like. And we actually we're preferring of the sky, getting more light coming into that space. That was balancing that we kind of closed our corner on Helena a little bit. So the short answer to this part was no, we kind of just pulled it away and then reapplied these pieces. So we didn't consider too many other options here. So, and then on the Parker structure, we studied several versions. So even from stucco walls that could be fully muraled and lighter roofs, but we looked to different types of the corrugated. We did more mesh just around the whole thing, but we ultimately just landed on this combination of mostly corrugated, open on the north, but no more. And then the mesh on this north face, we did a few options and we just kind of landed at this composition just because it kind of felt pleasing, added color and closed in the top just enough.
Okay. Those are all my questions, Chair Moore.
Okay, thank you. We may have covered this last time. In fact, I'm sure we did. What is the setback from the property line to the front face of the parking building?
Okay, let's go to a floor plan. Of the Parker, or the Parker sheet.
7 feet, there it is, found it.
Oh, you already found it? So, what sheet are you looking at, Chair Moore?
Oh, I found the dimension. It's 7 foot, 7 feet. 7
Okay,
six.
there we go. Yep, zoom into the
There's two
right
different
there.
dimensions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so there isn't necessarily a property line anymore in between this building and then the structures to the ocean side of the shared parking lot. Is that correct? has that been dissolved? Or
Am I on here? I can't tell. Hello?
yes.
Is that Jared?
Yeah.
Jared. Yeah.
It hasn't been dissolved. These are still two separate properties. So they haven't been merged.
Got it. Where would that property line be?
That property line is over on the south side of that parking lot that's next to us.
So up against
Yeah,
the
so
building.
that whole aisle of parking that goes through from Anacapa Street all the way through to Helena, that's actually on this property. And
Got it.
just a number of those spaces are encumbered by the property in Cabrillo.
Understood. Okay. And then I think you touched on it a little bit with Ms. Anderson's questions, but if we swing back over to the other side of the building, the photos of the much loved Helena side of this building are, show the kind of eclectic use of materials and colors. And particularly the wood balcony elements, little deck elements with its kind of open wood railing. Was that type of material considered for the deck railings as well at any time?
So I think I think we all appreciate the eclectic nature of this facade, but we took a peek and at least our design team didn't have the desire to try to replicate it. It's all pretty darn funky and thrown together. So in terms of materiality, the size of our industrial stair, we took more industrial kind of like nods. For the size of the stair, the metal was the right choice of the main structure, but that's why we chose, to pull in the color into the mesh, into the rail, but we also pulled in wood elements to the treads and to the landing. So you get a sense of these things. They're just sort of like dissected and presented in a slightly new way, but we're pulling the wood and we're pulling the color. So we definitely wanted to have a play of new and old, but somehow get them to relate to each other.
Okay, thank you. And then these planters that are on the deck, are they simply resting on the deck? They're not actually part of the railing. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
And,
Okay. Those are my questions. Anyone else follow up? Nope. Okay, then let's go to comments. Who would like to start? Vice Chair 6, go ahead.
Yeah, here, I'm on, not on mute. I think they've done I really appreciate what they've done with the parking structure. I think it's really fun. It's quirky and has that artistic serendipity. I really think that's working very well. As I referenced as I alluded to in my questions, I think you should go all the way and find a more traditional fluted profile on your corrugation. But other than that, I think it's really a fun idea, and it's successfully clad to where it really fits in the context of the neighborhood and the funk zone. And I like the stair, and but the turn of the corner, I think that's very successful. The stair has a sense of of an old time. But when I get up when I get up to the very top deck, and especially because, you know, if you look, I spent a lot of time looking at Google Maps and driving, and from Cabrillo, this guy from said Cabrillo view is going to be very visible, and I still think you need to do more work on the screening at the balcony and the contemporary radical overhang of above the bar. You know, I look at and I love the truss, the metal truss idea in the Parker, and perhaps I know that birds and pigeons and seagulls are going to be a real problem up there. But you know, I look at, for instance, the old metal trusses at the loading dock at Mason and Santa Barbara Street. You have an image, you have a inspiration image of that, or perhaps some other kind of structure above this flat roof of cables and midline mast shafts that come up and the cables come out to visually hold up the roof. Something more dated, something more older, and especially as we're seeing this from Cabrillo, I'm still concerned about that. So I commend what you've done so far, but I'm still uncomfortable with the modern expression of the roof elements and the deck screening. Those are my comments.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with comments? Mr. Olson, go ahead.
Yes, as to the building, I think that I sort of have mixed feelings about it. I agree with Mr. Six that perhaps it's much closer to resolve than it was before. Perhaps it has a ways to go. I think what it does is really emphasizes the funkiness of the building below it. And it would seem to me that kind of in not a complimentary way. And I have some concern about the contradiction of the new and the old there. As to the Parker, I'm holding on here to the dead horse and saying that I'm not sure how we can be concerned with the siding and the finish and what that building looks like, and then have no concern about what could cover in front of it. So I'm still holding my disagreement there. That's all of my comments.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Whalen?
Sure. Thank you, Chair Moore. I find the improvements and the proposals made for the existing building to be very compatible and very well thought out. I like the expression of the new versus the old and the funky. I like the idea that all the new modernist stuff is really hidden up on the roof, and those views will be terrific. My heart kind of sinks a little when I get to the parking structure, that we are compelled to put so many of our resources, time and material into the parking of cars. It's just kind of breaks my heart. But be that as it may, this is an inventive proposal. To that end, I would suggest that the designers try to reduce the visual height of the building. It's a three-story structure, and make it look more like a two-story. To that end, the base of the wood could be extended or increased in height. And the cladding that member 6 spoke of, I'm completely in support of. I really don't care for the folded corrugation that's proposed. I think the S-curve, in fact, it might even be a giant S-curve to decrease the impact and give you a visual representation of being a smaller structure. The hat of the truss is an inventive idea. However, it does add to the height. Anything that could be done to reduce that actual height, I would be highly in favor of. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
I'll say something.
Okay.
Well, when I think back to what was proposed in the last go around, you know, I wasn't really impressed with much of it, but I think the designers have really done a nice job here for a lot of the reasons that have been mentioned already. You know, the beer garden that was recently, or was in the process of being completed, that has a lot of the same elements, you know, approved by this board that I see here. You know, the flat overhang element, you know, so that to me they tie together. And I think overall, I think that just the use of materials and sort of the industrial look that it's created and the opportunities for future artwork, I think they've really done a nice job, I think. And I think it's really contributes to the funkiness of the funk zone. That's all.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I think this proposal, this updated proposal is just far and away a much better resolution of what's really an ambitious project to breathe life into this building, a very expensive project, no doubt. I agree with Vice Chair 6 on most of his sentiments. I think the parking building has come a long way, and I think is very close to being something that is approvable. I get a little, you know, when we see renderings with murals, proposed murals and things like that, it always gives me a little pause as, you know, is this, are we approving a decorated building with decoration that isn't achievable or won't happen? So I would suggest in the future, if any renderings, you know, that have, you know, we just see the architecture and not the added layers of murals and potential pieces that could be added to these. Then the rooftop element, I think I was so hoping that it would be something that was similar to the proposal for the car building, something that had a little bit more contextual relationship with the neighborhood. You know, to my mind, you know, yes, it's not a totally visible thing, but looking at this image right here, it's sort of this mid-century modern pavilion that has landed on top of this funky old building. And, you know, there's just such a great opportunity to make something on top of this building that is just fits in really well and has materials that are similar to what we see here, and just has a little bit more funk zone vibe to it. So I would encourage the designers to go a little bit further in that direction. and look for other opportunities to include wood and color in the finishes that they choose for the rooftop portion of the project. Those are my comments. Anyone else have anything else to add?
I do.
Okay,
so
go ahead, Mr. Olson.
I guess this is a question for staff. Who does make decisions about things like that get added onto the sides of these buildings, such as murals and other kinds of things? Where is who makes those decisions?
Perhaps staff could weigh in on and give us a little information about the mural program and how those locations get picked, etc.
Thank you, Chair Moore. I believe it was 2017 or perhaps 2016 when the Funk Zone mural project came in for review. And at that time, there were specific locations that were identified throughout the Funk Zone for approval of locations that murals could be placed. The artwork, however, was not up to the ABR to approve. The ABR was able to weigh in on the locations identified in the program. Since this building doesn't exist, it's doubtful that this location is part of the mural program, but it sounds like the applicant will be is interested in joining the Funk Zone mural program. Hope that, does that help?
Who was on the approval program for the Funk Zone? Was that the ABR or was that someone else?
It came through the ABR. I actually know this because I've had the actual hard file in my hand several times because I had to go through and do some investigating in the Funk Zone for some murals to ensure that they were placed appropriately. So there is a approved document. It's housed at the city right now.
So in that case, it will come back to us before they can place these murals on the buildings?
Not necessarily. I believe that the part of the mural program, they have a review system as part of the artwork. And I'm not sure what the name of the arts organization is. I'm not sure if it's the Art Commission or something like that. I'd have to go back and look at the mural program to see what who the review body is for the actual art.
Perhaps when they come back before us, you might inform us of that procedure.
Yes, certainly.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Olson. It's an important aspect of any project down in the Funk Zone. It seems to be, something that everybody wants to add to their building, and I think it's a great thing. So we do need to understand it and make sure we're taking that into account and understanding what a project can and cannot incorporate. Okay, so would somebody like to take a crack at a motion? The applicant is looking to get favorable comments so they can go on to the Planning Commission so they can discuss their parking waiver or parking modification.
Mr. Chair.
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair, I heard several varying comments about the general direction here, and I think we need to have some discussion. Well, a discussion perhaps before we make a motion that would be acceptable by a majority. I hear some that say the Parker is not appropriate scale or appropriate appearance and scale. And I hear others that say the Parker is quite nice and successful and so forth. And then I also hear that the rooftop structure and enclosure railing is not quite, for lack of a better word, funky enough. And then I hear others that say that these elements, the contemporary overhang, et cetera, is on the on the most recent project. So I don't see a consensus yet.
My apologies, my feed cut out partway through that, but I think I'm getting the gist that perhaps we need to have some discussion about the individual elements, and maybe even a straw vote.
Yeah, I think maybe two straw votes at least in my mind is whether the Parker is acceptable in its design and apparent mass. And the other straw vote is whether the architecture of the rooftop elements are acceptable in the present design. Is that worth taking a straw vote on?
Perhaps, and I wonder, this is a question for staff, is it, or actually Mr. Bauman even, I mean, the crux of this project is really the parking modification, and whether the applicant has support from ABR for the parking machine and its configuration is probably valuable information for the Planning Commission. Would you recommend that the project move forward with, say we were to get positive comments from board members about the parking machine building, but the rooftop deck is still maybe, in flux or not fully determined, or with no agreement between board members if it's appropriate or not at this time? Would that be a way that the applicant could move forward?
Chair Moore, I think so. As long as the board would be comfortable making the project compatibility analysis, giving favorable comments on those items, those criteria for project compatibility, knowing that the details could be resolved. For example, the parking stacker, I think it'd be enough to know that the ABR is okay with its location, its general placement, size, etc. But the architectural details would not be necessarily necessary.
Okay. The compatibility criteria would be just an initial look at those. We wouldn't be making the compatibility criteria analysis as if this was project design approval.
Right.
Is that correct?
You're correct. The action of the board following Planning Commission for project design approval and final approval would be separate things. The project compatibility criteria are more general.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what do board members feel about, it would be nice to allow the applicant to continue to move forward.
Yes.
So how do board members feel about let's take it in pieces. How do board members feel about the parking machine, its location, asphalt and scale, etc., and then finally its aesthetics? We can all weigh in. That'd be helpful.
Pardon the interruption, Chair Moore. I've just been notified the applicant would like to give some additional information on, as you know, that's up to your discretion if you would allow that.
Additional information about
About this project.
anything? Okay. Well, I would like to finish our discussion here at this point, unless they have some input on the procedural approach and how they want to move forward. That question was directed at staff. In the meantime,
I
let's
think our
continue.
information is procedural. I'm unclear where we're.
Okay. So
I'm
if
sorry.
you want to give us some input on this concept of trying to get comments strictly regarding the parking portion of the project, then please go ahead.
I think that it's okay to do that. And really, at this point, it seems like we're really talking about some material treatments and things. And I think you could give us comments on the whole project and send us to Planning Commission, knowing that we're still going to have to address some of these material issues, like on the deck rail, for example. I think the comments on the Parker are very critical because our ability to meet the parking requires on that Parker. So,
sure.
But I don't know that you necessarily have to split your comments and limit them only to the Parker. I think it would be, we would find it beneficial if we had your comments about the appropriateness of the roof deck and the way we're doing these stairs and all as well, because I think the Planning Commission they would appreciate having your comments.
Okay, thank you. Well,
Yeah, and
let's just continue. Let's go back to the parking. Let's have a little discussion amongst the board members about that, because as Vice Chair Six pointed out, there are varying opinions. So let's go back through that and see if we can sort out where everybody is. So,
Mr. Chair, can we switch the slide over to the parking structure?
yes, please.
Look at it. Here we go.
And perhaps it's best to go to the elevation sheet. So we're getting architectural drawings.
There you go. No.
So Chair Moore, when you asked us to make comments about the size, bulk, and scale of that unit, and then at the end you added aesthetics, perhaps it would be easier for us to leave that part of it off, since the applicant isn't asking for that specifically.
No, we need to include in our motion if we feel the aesthetics are appropriate for this location. Okay.
Good. So, Chair Moore, do you want to rephrase your question so we have a
Sure.
yes on it?
Well, I don't think it's a yes or no. This is we're looking for a little bit of discussion about the proposal, because as you pointed out, there's some varying and differing opinions about each aspect of this. So
Okay.
it would be nice just to have it be a little more clear who's thinking what.
I'll go first. I think
Great.
that size is appropriate, the location is appropriate, and the aesthetics are successfully sympathetic with the funk zone and the local character.
Okay,
I would agree.
Mr. Olson? Oh, sorry, Mr. Black, go ahead. Do you agree? Great.
Sorry, I agree with those sentiments wholeheartedly. Yes.
Mr. Olson?
I have a qualified agreement.
Okay.
So that's as close as I can come to a yes or no.
All right. What's the qualification?
Well, the qualification is what I've been speaking to, is that I think the aesthetics involve greatly the choice of where and when and how big they're going to cover up this building with something other than what we're approving.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Anderson, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think the aesthetics, I mean, they mimic what's happening in the funk zone. I think that it's a little disappointing that the previous design wasn't kind of elevated or pushed a little further to use like the shape they were going with and maybe the materials in a different way. But overall, I mean, it mimics the funk zone. So.
Okay. Mr. Whalen?
Yes, I'm in agreement with the size, bulk, and scale, and only with modest changes to the architectural image, the characterization of materials, and an attempt to visually reduce the height. So as Mr. Olson said, a qualified agreement.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so it sounds like we're pretty much all in agreement that the mass, bulk, and scale is appropriate, location is appropriate, aesthetics are appropriate with some qualifications and perhaps modifications based on public art or some other treatment of the exterior. And okay, so great. So let's move to the rooftop portion. If we could flip the slides to that. So let's just go down the line again. Who was in favor of the rooftop deck and stair as proposed?
I would say yes.
Mr. Black?
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Whalen, you had your hand up. Is that a yes?
Yes, I also.
Okay. Vice Chair Six? Oh, sorry, Miss Anderson, go ahead.
I just had a question. Can we ask when the applicant comes back if they can provide like a, I don't know, perspective from Cabrillo or from other areas so that we can actually see how much of the roof we can see? Okay.
That's completely appropriate, I think.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, otherwise, I like stairs, I guess, and I'm okay with the roof as is.
All right. Vice Chair Six?
Yeah, as I stated in my comments, I don't think it's there yet. I think it needs to have a more dated look. It's still too modern, contemporary, even though this building is eclectic. I think it's eclectic in old materials and could be, and the expression up here is very contemporary and outside of what I would consider harmonizing with older industrial nature of the building itself and of the neighborhood. So I wouldn't be able to support it as designed.
Okay. Mr. Olson?
I'm siding with Mr. Six on this particular issue.
You're siding with Mr. Six?
Yes.
That's right. Okay. And I'm in agreement with the two of you, so we're a little split on the roof deck portion of this. So what I'll do is make a motion to continue the project to Planning Commission with the following comments: that the board finds the structure of the parking machine, mass, bulk, and scale to be appropriate for the location, that the proposed materials of the parking machine structure are appropriate for the area and the funk zone. And the board looks forward to the continued refinement of those materials and detailing and colors. The number two, the board finds the proposal for the rooftop deck to be in concept acceptable. The proposed design changes are a vast improvement from the previous proposal. However, the board finds this particular design to be too modern for the location and requests that the aesthetics of the rooftop deck and railing be restudied to tie better in with the existing building and materials and colors.
Second.
Is that Mr. Olson?
Yes.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Olson. Any discussion?
Discussion. So I haven't heard much spoken about this, the stair going up. In my mind, am I understanding that that's acceptable to the board, the way it's structured, and then really what we're focusing on now is really the deck and the building and railing? Is that correct?
In my mind, the exterior stair location is fine. And my suggestion that the design be restudied would assume that the applicant would also take a look at the materials, or the, not necessarily the materials of the steel, but the railing of the stairs, etc.
Okay.
So it's all a coordinated design.
Excuse me, Chair Moore.
Yes, is that Mr. Baumann?
Yes, excuse me, but if you're making a motion, it sounds like you're trying to make a motion to continue it to the Planning Commission, but listening to the comments regarding the roof deck and then considering one of the criteria for project compatibility, it's criterion number 2, compatible with architectural character of city and neighborhood. Is the design of the project compatible with the desirable architectural qualities and characteristics which are distinctive of Santa Barbara and of the particular neighborhood surrounding the project? So you should consider whether you can make that compatibility criteria, find the project consistent with that, given what you said about the design of the roof deck. So it's kind of a fine line there.
Mm-hmm. Well, you did mention that at this stage, the compatibility criteria have a very wide scope, and it's not as detailed as we're getting. So I think the intent is to try and move the project forward and let the Planning Commission know that in concept, the roof deck is acceptable. It's simply the aesthetics or the materiality of it. So the general mass, bulk, and scale of it seems to be fine.
Right, that's fine, as long as the board members can vote to go along with consistency on that criterion.
And we could clarify that at the time and simply say that, simply make that statement that the mass bulk and scale is appropriate. However, the materiality needs to be further studied. More discussion? Mr. Six, you had something you were about to say.
Chair Moore,
Yes.
I don't know if I can support your motion as proposed because I want to see more. I have a problem. Well, you've mentioned the rail of the rooftop deck at the rooftop deck, but I also feel that the very modern, a clean cantilever without any expression of some older form of structure, such as metal trusses or some kind of tie rod or cables or something that harkens to the older methodology be seen up there.
Okay. I guess could we read that portion of the motion back, please?
Yes. Give me one moment. So we have, the board finds the proposal for the rooftop deck to be in concept acceptable. The proposed design changes are a vast improvement from the previous proposal. However, the board finds this particular design to be too modern for the location and requests that the aesthetics of the rooftop deck and railing be restudied in order to tie better in with the existing building materials and colors. The mass, bulk, and scale are appropriate. However, the materiality needs to be further studied.
Okay, so I guess we could go farther and say, what was your suggestion, Mr. Six?
And just insert materiality and structural system. Would that be enough?
Of the roof element.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is that okay, Mr. Olson?
Yes.
Okay. It looks like the applicant would like to say something. So let's take a brief minute, and if the applicant could just say what they need to say.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Moore. I won't take up too much time. Hopefully this insight will be helpful. I think we all know the process is kind of what we're after to keep everything moving along. That's important to us. I think all the comments we received tonight, we'll be happy to accommodate. The rooftop canopy, some studying of the stair, the mesh. I think we're all really comfortable with fine tuning that with this board, which we'll see at least a couple more times. So our desire would be just clarity on, the rooftop itself is an acceptable component to this project. We don't want it to be framed in a negative way or come across like there isn't support for the rooftop. It sounds like all the parts are approvable with us working with this board on aesthetics, which we're happy to do.
Okay, so I think we were pretty clear at the beginning of that part of the motion that in concept the rooftop deck is acceptable. So I think that should get you what you need.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there any more discussion?
Mr. Chair, I think you need to read the compatibility analysis in a conceptual way.
Yes. have those on the screen. Okay, so this is what I'm going to call a conceptual project compatibility or criteria review. So number one, compliance with city charter and municipal code, consistency with design guidelines. At this time, the project conceptually complies with the city charter and design guidelines applicable to the location within the city. It has been noted in the motion that the rooftop deck design needs further study. However, in concept, it is consistent with the design guidelines. Number two, the project is compatible with the architectural character of the city and the neighborhood because of the distinct architectural qualities in the Funk Zone area. Number three, it has appropriate size, mass, bulk, height, and scale as the project proposal for the car parking machine is the lower or similar to the height of the existing building, and the rooftop deck height seems to be minimized as possible, as much as possible. Number four, sensitivity to adjacent landmarks and historic resources. We are not aware of any adjacent landmarks or historic resources. Number five, public views of oceans and mountains. We are not aware of any established scenic public vistas that would be impacted by this project. Number six, use of open space and landscaping. This project is inventive in the use of the car parking machine, thereby actually opening up additional landscaping area and open space and making use of a rooftop space. So that's the conceptual project compatibility criteria read. And I do want to add to the motion another request that the applicant shall provide perspective views of the proposed project from the corner of Cabrillo and Helena. Focusing mainly on the rooftop deck from eye level. Is that satisfactory, Ms. Anderson? Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
may I add that to alleviate Mr. Olson's concern that the future renderings and elevations do not include art?
Yes, that would appropriate. So let's add all future renderings shall not include artwork or signage in the proposed views. Additionally, if city staff could provide further clarification on the Funk Zone art mural locations and process for that, for additional locations.
Thank you.
All right. Do we need to reread all of that, or are we okay with what we've got?
I'm fine.
I think we can carry on. Okay, so let's take our vote.
It's okay with a second, by the way.
Thank you.
All right, this is Mary. I'll go ahead and take the roll call vote. We have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I believe that does it for the evening. Just 2 items today. So with that, we will adjourn our architectural board review for February 22nd. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.